It was one of those days where everything felt perfectly normal, until suddenly, it didn't. My name is Scarlett, and managing a hotel is pretty much the story of my life. The check-ins and check-outs are endless, and you always have to be prepared for anything, especially complaints. I was stationed at the front desk when a man stormed over, his polished shoes clicking sharply against the marble floor. He looked expensive, impeccably tailored suit, slicked back hair, an air of importance surrounding him like a force field. Without hesitation, he slammed his phone onto the counter, his eyes burning into mine as if I were personally responsible for whatever had gone wrong. "The state of my room is absolutely unacceptable. Who is responsible for this?" he demanded, his voice cutting through the ambient hotel chatter like a blade. Taking a steadying breath, I put on my best customer service smile, the one I reserved for difficult guests. "I'm really sorry about that, sir. My name is Scarlett. I'm the manager here. Let me fix this for you right away." He exhaled sharply, still eyeing me with suspicion. "I hope so. I was about to call the owner." "What's your name again?" "Scarlett," I repeated calmly, maintaining eye contact. "Let's sort this out. How about I upgrade you to one of our best rooms, free of charge, to make up for the inconvenience?" His eyes narrowed slightly, but I could see the tension in his shoulders ease just a fraction. Without another word, he followed me down the hall. As we walked, I caught him glancing around as if assessing whether this hotel was worth his time. By the time we reached the upgraded room, some of his earlier hostility had melted away. He ran a hand through his hair and sighed. "Sorry for blowing up like that," he muttered, scratching the back of his neck. "I've been on the road for weeks, and it's starting to wear me down." "Name's Sean, by the way." "No worries, Sean," I said with an easy smile. "We all have days like that. Let's just make sure the rest of your stay is pleasant." I unlocked the door and stepped aside, watching as he took in the upgraded room. His expression softened as he surveyed the space, nodding in approval. "This will do nicely, thanks," he said, his voice carrying a note of genuine relief. Seeing him relax was a small victory. As I filled out some paperwork, we started chatting. And that's when I found out Sean wasn't just another businessman passing through. He was a cryptocurrency investor, traveling to enjoy the rewards of his smart decisions. "It's not as great as it sounds," he admitted, leaning against the doorframe. "I can imagine," I replied, handing him his new room keys. "But hey, at least you get to meet new people all the time, right?" He chuckled, a real laugh this time. "Yeah, like hotel managers who know how to handle a grumpy guest." I grinned. Part of the job's charm. Just as I was about to leave, he hesitated. "Hey, Scarlett. Would you like to grab dinner later? I owe you for dealing with my tantrum." I blinked, slightly taken aback. I hadn't seen that coming. But there was something sincere in the way he asked, something different from the usual entitled guests who thought a free meal could buy good service. "Sure, Sean, that would be nice." And just like that, I found myself having dinner with a guest from the hotel. We talked about everything, from cryptocurrency to our favorite pizza toppings. He was easy to talk to, quick to laugh, and didn't mind when I vented about the chaos of my day. After that unexpected dinner, Sean and I started spending more time together. It wasn't one of those cheesy whirlwind romances. It felt real, raw even. After my shifts, we'd meet up. Sometimes it was for a late-night bite. Other times we'd just walk, talking about anything and everything until the city lights blurred into the early morning sky. One evening, we ended up at a small dive bar, the kind where everyone knew each other and the beer was always cold. We tucked ourselves into a corner booth, the chatter around us blending into a soft hum. Sean sat across from me, peeling the label off his beer bottle, a nervous habit I had started to notice. "You know, Scarlett," he began, his voice quieter than usual. "I've traveled a lot, seen so many places, but life on the road, it gets lonely." I studied him for a moment, then took a slow sip of my drink. "Yeah," I said softly. "So why keep doing it? Why not settle down or something?" He let out a short, dry laugh. "Settle down and do what? Invest in real estate? Get a dog and mow the lawn on Sundays? That's not me." I chuckled, shaking my head. "It doesn't have to be that boring, you know." "But I get it. Freedom's hard to let go of." A comfortable silence settled between us. The neon bar signs flickered, casting a warm glow over the worn wooden tables. And then, without really meaning to, I started talking. Sharing more than I had with anyone in a long time. You know, after my parents died, it was just me and my little sister, Janet. I had to grow up fast, take care of both of us. Everything, her schooling, her life. It all depended on me. Sean turned to me, his expression serious. That's heavy, Scarlett. That must have been tough, taking on all that responsibility. Yeah, it was rough, I admitted, shrugging slightly. But what can you do? You play the hand you're dealt. He exhaled, shaking his head in quiet admiration. You've done well for yourself, though. Managing a hotel and all. I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like ages. Yeah, I guess, managing the hotel, paying the bills, making sure Janet had a somewhat normal life. It's been a ride. Sean leaned in slightly, his eyes locking onto mine. You're remarkable, you know that? I rolled my eyes, playfully swatting at his arm. Stop it. But the way he looked at me in that moment, like he really meant it, made my heart skip just a little. His words made me feel warm inside, like he truly saw me for who I was. But not wanting to dwell on that feeling too much, I shifted the conversation. So, what about you? I asked, tilting my head slightly. Have you ever thought about having a family? Sean shifted in his seat, looking momentarily uncomfortable. Ah, family. That's a tricky one, he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. Let's just say my parents and I don't exactly see eye to eye. They have their empire, and I have my life on the road. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. An empire, huh? I teased, playfully bumping his shoulder. Sounds fancy. He let out a small, almost reluctant smile. Not as fancy as it sounds. More like a lot of expectations and being tied down. We spent hours talking that night, unraveling bits and pieces of our pasts, breaking down invisible walls between us. It felt natural, like we'd known each other for far longer than we actually had. I didn't even realize how late it had gotten until the bartender started flipping chairs onto the tables, signaling closing time. Things with Sean had been going well, really well, but I could always sense a sliver of distance when it came to serious conversations about our future. He never outright avoided them, but he never fully engaged either. Until one evening, when everything changed. I had invited Sean over for dinner at my place, a first in our relationship. Up until then, he had only ever seen the front of my apartment building when he came to pick me up. But tonight was different. Tonight, I was letting him in, showing him a piece of my world. As he stepped inside, his eyes wandered over the space, taking in every detail. This is nice. Really nice, Scarlett. I didn't expect you to live in a place like this, he said, sounding genuinely surprised. I laughed, spreading my arms dramatically. What, did you think I lived in a shack or something? I teased. After my parents passed, they left us in a pretty good spot financially. We sold their house, and I bought this apartment for Janet and me. I made the first payment on the mortgage, and now it's mine. Sean nodded, clearly impressed. You've done really well for yourself. I mean, really well. The evening flowed effortlessly. After dinner, we settled onto the couch, a half-empty bottle of wine resting between us. That's when he dropped the bombshell. Scarlett, I've been doing a lot of thinking about us. My heart skipped a beat, my fingers tightening slightly around my wine glass. I raised an eyebrow, trying to keep my voice casual. Oh yeah? And what have you been thinking? He took my hand in his grip firm but warm. His eyes locked onto mine, intense and unwavering. I love you, Scarlett. I know I said I wasn't looking to settle down, but with you, it's different. I can't imagine being anywhere else but here, with you. His words hit me like a wave. Just a few weeks ago, he was all about freedom, about not committing, and now he was saying this? But as I looked into his eyes, I knew he wasn't just saying it because of the moment. He was serious. Are you sure, Sean? I asked, searching his face for any hesitation. This isn't just something you're saying because of the wine, or because it feels right in the moment. He shook his head, squeezing my hand a little tighter. I've never been more serious about anything, Scarlett. Will you marry me? The question hung in the air, heavy with meaning. My mind raced, but my heart had already made the decision before I could think twice. "Yes," I whispered. Then, with more certainty, "Yes, I'll marry you." And just like that, we were engaged. A couple of weeks later, Sean presented me with a beautiful ring, simple yet elegant. It felt like a dream, like I was stepping into a world so perfect that I never wanted to wake up. Everything was falling into place. Sean started talking about the wedding almost immediately, his enthusiasm infectious. "You deserve something amazing, Scarlett," he said one evening as we looked over budgets and venues. "Let's have a wedding no one will ever forget." I smiled, but when he laid out his financial plan, I hesitated. I was thinking, since I have all the contacts, I'll organize everything, you just provide the funds, say $30,000, and I'll cover the honeymoon at the most luxurious hotel in the world. After that, we'll get a house together. I swallowed hard. The amount made me pause. It was a lot. Almost everything I had. But then I saw the excitement in his face, the way his eyes lit up as he talked about our future. I pushed aside my doubts and nodded. "Okay," I said softly, "if you think that's best." "I trust you, Sean." Without another thought, I transferred the money into his account, letting him take the reins of our wedding planning. Watching him get so involved, so eager, made my heart swell. Here was a man who had entered my life so unexpectedly, yet now felt like he had always belonged. Every night I went to bed with a smile, convinced I was the luckiest woman in the world. Everything was perfect, or so I thought. The wedding plans were coming together beautifully, and everything seemed to be falling into place. With the big day approaching, I felt it was finally time for Sean to meet my sister, Janet. She was the only family I had left, and even though she could be a bit much at times, her opinion mattered to me more than I liked to admit. We decided to meet at the local diner where Janet worked as a waitress. The moment we stepped inside, the familiar bell above the door jingled, announcing our arrival. Janet spotted us right away, her face lighting up with excitement. "Hey sis," she called out, waving us over. Her eyes quickly flickered to Sean and a smirk spread across her lips. "And you must be the famous fiancé I've heard so much about." Sean, ever the charmer, stepped forward with a confident smile and extended his hand. "And you must be the beautiful sister I've heard so much about. You two could be twins." I rolled my eyes, feeling both proud and slightly annoyed. Okay, cut the charm." Janet just laughed, then leaned in closer with a mischievous glint in her eyes. "So, Sean, are you as rich as they say? My sister sure knows how to pick 'em." "Janet," I hissed, my cheeks heating up with embarrassment. She always knew exactly how to push my buttons. But Sean, as always, took it in stride, chuckling as he shook his head. "Well, I've done all right for myself, but Scarlett's right. It's not about the money, it's about love." Janet raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. "Smooth talker, huh?" "I like him." Over the next few weeks, Sean continued to be the perfect fiancé. He was charming, attentive, and always made me feel like I was the most important person in his life. He didn't even flinch at Janet's flirtatious comments, which was a relief. Everything felt perfect. Then, in the middle of all the wedding madness, my best friend Olivia and I took a much-needed break to go dress shopping. The bridal boutique was a dream. Soft silk, delicate lace, and shimmering satin lined every rack. As I stood in front of the mirror, being carefully zipped into a gown, the reality of it all started to sink in. That's when I heard a familiar laugh from the next fitting booth. Curious, I peeked around the curtain, and my heart nearly stopped. There, twirling in front of the mirror, was Janet. In a wedding dress. "Janet?" I blurted out, my voice filled with confusion. "What are you doing in a wedding dress?" She froze mid-spun, then turned to me with a crooked smile. "Oh, just trying some stuff on. You know, for fun." Before I could respond, Olivia appeared beside me, eyebrows raised. "Looks like someone's caught the wedding bug," she teased. Janet let out an awkward laugh, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Yeah, something like that. Let's just say I might need one sooner than you think." I narrowed my eyes, half amused, half concerned. "Wait, are you serious? Is there something you need to tell me?" She waved me off, her tone light but distant. "Just let it be a surprise." We all laughed, brushing it off as one of Janet's usual dramatic moments. But something about the way she said it stuck with me. Still, I pushed the thought aside, focusing on my own big day. That morning started like any other, until it didn't. Sean rushed out after breakfast, mumbling something about an important meeting he couldn't miss. I barely had time to kiss him goodbye before he was out the door. As I cleaned up the table, I noticed his phone sitting on the coffee table. He had forgotten it. Just minutes after he left, the screen lit up with an incoming flood of messages. At first, I ignored it. It was probably work or maybe something about the wedding. But the phone kept buzzing, relentless, insistent. A knot tightened in my stomach. Something didn't feel right. It's probably just a buddy checking in, I muttered to myself, reaching for the phone. Sean never said a password. That should have been my first clue that he wasn't as careful as he thought he was. The moment I unlocked the screen, my breath hitched. Every message was from the same contact. Janet. My heart sank. Why was he texting Janet so much? I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe it was something innocent. Something about the wedding. But my fingers moved on their own, tapping open the chat. What I read felt like a punch to the gut. Janet, I can't wait to be with you forever. Sean, soon, love. We just need to play along a little longer. She's so clueless, it's almost funny. The blood drained from my face. My hands trembled as I scrolled further, my vision blurring. Message after message, betrayal after betrayal, each word cutting deeper than the last. They weren't just talking. They were planning. Planning to betray me. Planning to use me. Planning a future together without me in it. They had planned everything meticulously, using my money to start their life together once I was out of the way. But the worst part? Janet was pregnant. And not just pregnant, she was carrying Sean's child. The room spun around me, my stomach twisted into knots. My baby sister, the one I had practically raised, was betraying me in the most unimaginable way. And Sean, the man who had vowed to love and protect me, was the one handing her the knife to stab me in the back. An hour later, Sean came back, looking slightly flustered, his usual confidence masking whatever thoughts were running through his deceitful mind. Hey babe, you see my phone? He asked, leaning in to kiss my cheek like nothing was wrong. I forced a smile, one I had perfected over the years, the same polite professional smile I had used 1,000 times before. You left it here, I said sweetly, handing it to him. You must be slipping, leaving your lifeline behind like that. As he scrolled through the screen, probably checking for any missed messages from Janet, I watched him carefully. Did he have any idea that I knew? Did he even care? But Sean was clueless, so lost in his own lies that he didn't see the storm brewing right in front of him. He laughed at something on his phone, completely at ease. My fists clenched involuntarily. Go ahead, Sean, laugh it up. Enjoy it while you can. Later that night, as we lay in bed, he was all smiles, talking about our future. It's going to be perfect, Scarlett. This wedding, our life together, you'll see. I turned to face him, my heart torn between the love I once felt and the unbearable weight of betrayal. I'm sure it will be, I murmured, letting him pull me close, pretending to melt into his embrace. Absolutely perfect. While he drifted off to sleep, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I wasn't going to be the victim in this twisted game. If they wanted a show, I'd give them one they'd never forget. But first, I had to keep playing the role of the loving fiancé, just a little longer. The day of the wedding arrived, and with it, the performance of a lifetime. The grand hall was breathtaking, draped in white roses and twinkling lights. Guests whispered excitedly, oblivious to the storm about to unfold. Everything was in place, everything was perfect. And then, just as we were about to exchange vows, the doors at the back of the hall flew open with a dramatic bang. All heads turned as Janet, wearing a wedding dress, marched down the aisle like she owned the place. Gasps echoed through the room, the shocked murmurs growing louder. But Janet didn't stop. She walked straight up to us, pushing me aside with a theatrical flourish. I'm the one who deserves to be here, not you, Scarlett, she declared, her voice ringing through the hall. I'm having his baby. The room fell into stunned silence. She turned to Sean, her eyes filled with expectation. "Tell her. Tell everyone." For a moment, Sean hesitated. Then, with a slow, deliberate smirk, he let go of my hand and laughed. A harsh, ugly sound that echoed through the cathedral-like hall. "Thanks, Scarlett, for setting up this amazing wedding," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. "It's perfect. For me and your sister." A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Whispers spread like wildfire, shock painted across every face. John turned to me, his smirk widening. "Why don't you take a seat, Scarlett? Enjoy the show as a guest." His words were meant to break me. They were meant to humiliate me, to make me crumble in front of everyone. Instead, I simply smiled. Stepping back gracefully, I nodded. "Of course," I said, my voice calm and unwavering. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." Their smug smiles faltered. Confusion flickered in their eyes. This wasn't the reaction they had expected. I walked away, not in defeat, but in complete control, and took a seat, crossing my legs elegantly as I watched the chaos unfold before me. Sean and Janet turned back to the priest, ready to exchange vows. The room was still buzzing with murmurs of disbelief when suddenly, another interruption shattered the moment. A woman, older, furious, stormed down the aisle. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with each determined step. "Sean!" she shouted, her voice thick with anger. Sean turned to look, his face draining of color. The entire room fell into a stunned silence. The woman came to a halt at the altar, her expression a mixture of rage and betrayal. "You lying, cheating scumbag," she spat, her voice shaking. Janet stiffened. The guests leaned forward, straining to hear what was happening. Sean's forced smile vanished as sheer panic flickered across his face. The woman glared at him, then turned to the audience. "I'm his wife, and the mother of his child." The room erupted. Janet staggered back, her face drained of all color. Her legs nearly gave out beneath her as she looked between Sean and the furious woman. Then, as if remembering I was still there, her eyes darted to me, pleading, desperate. I stood up slowly, smoothing my dress, my voice as cold as ice. "I have a little surprise for everyone too," I announced, my tone clear and unwavering. Silence fell once again. "Sean isn't just a cheater," I continued, each word sharp and deliberate. "He's broke. A private investigator confirmed it. His investments failed, he's drowning in debt, and worst of all..." I paused, letting the anticipation hang in the air. "He's been stealing from his own family." The room exploded into a frenzy of whispers. Scandalized gasps filling the air. Guests turned to each other, their expressions shifting from shock to outrage. Sean stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Janet trembled, her once confident posture crumbling. I let the chaos unfold, my heart steady, my mind clear. I had played my role perfectly. And now? It was time to watch them fall. The air was thick with shock and disbelief as the weight of the revelations settled over the room. But the chaos was far from over. Sean's wife, her face flushed with fury, turned her burning gaze toward Janet. "And you," she shouted, storming toward my sister with unrestrained rage, "how dare you?" Janet stumbled backward, her eyes wide, her face streaked with tears. The confrontation had shattered the illusion she had built for herself. Her dream wedding had crumbled into a living nightmare, and there was no waking up from it. I watched it all unfold, my emotions a twisted mix of satisfaction and sadness. I had spent weeks in agony, meticulously planning my revenge, and now, watching them fall apart felt like justice. But at the same time, it left an emptiness inside me, an ache that no amount of vengeance could erase. Sean's wife wasn't done. Her voice was sharp and merciless as she continued, each word slicing into Janet like a knife. "He's left us with nothing, and you think he's going to build a life with you? Wake up, girl!" Janet sobbed, shaking her head as if denying the truth would change it. The room was spinning around her, and her once radiant confidence had crumbled to dust. Sean, desperate to regain control of the situation, opened his mouth to speak, to salvage whatever dignity he had left. But before he could utter a word, his wife's hand flew through the air. Slap. The sound echoed through the grand hall like a gunshot, leaving the guests in stunned silence. Sean staggered slightly, his cheek turning red where her palm had connected. His usual smug charm had evaporated, leaving behind a man exposed, humiliated, and completely powerless. Just as the crowd was beginning to absorb the spectacle, another set of uninvited guests arrived. Ones who would deliver the final blow to Sean's already crumbling world. The doors swung open once again, and in walked Sean's parents. The elderly couple, exuding the aura of old money aristocracy, surveyed the disaster before them with expressions of sheer horror. They looked every bit the part of betrayed parents. His mother, a frail woman gripping a lace handkerchief in trembling hands, and his father, a stern man in an impeccable suit, his jaw clenched in barely restrained rage. His father was the first to speak, his voice booming over the shocked murmurs of the crowd. "I am utterly ashamed of you, Sean," he thundered, his sharp gaze drilling into his son. "You have disgraced this family." Sean visibly flinched at the condemnation, but he had no escape, no way to charm his way out of this one. His mother, her shoulders shaking with emotion, took a step forward. "My son, how could you?" she sobbed, her voice thick with heartbreak. "This is not how we raised you. Deceiving these women, playing with their hearts, is unforgivable." Sean, now stripped of his lies and manipulations, looked like a man drowning. He tried to speak, to explain, to somehow twist the narrative in his favor, but before he could get a single word out, his father cut him off with a final, devastating blow. "You are no longer part of this family's legacy," his father declared coldly. "Consider yourself without an inheritance." Gasps rippled through the guests. The whispers turned into an uproar. Phones were pulled out, cameras flashing, as people recorded the downfall of a man who had once been untouchable. This was no longer just a ruined wedding. It was a full-blown scandal, and the entire room was relishing in it. But for me, this wasn't just entertainment. This was justice. In the weeks that followed, I made sure Sean paid for what he had done. I took him to court, suing him to get back the $30,000 I had foolishly handed over for our wedding. The evidence was undeniable. Bank transfers, messages, records, and the judge ruled in my favor. Sean was ordered to repay every single penny. But his problems didn't stop there. Not long after, his wife filed her own lawsuit, hitting him with charges of emotional distress, deception, and alimony for their daughter. I attended every court session, watching as the man who had tried to ruin me faced the full consequences of his actions. Yet, despite everything, Janet remained by his side. One day, outside the courtroom, she confronted me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her voice trembling but resolute. "He loves me, Scarlett. And I love him. We're going to get through this no matter what you or anyone else thinks." I stared at her, the sister I had once adored, the girl I had sacrificed so much for. Now she was barely recognizable, a stranger blinded by desperation and misplaced devotion. A bitter laugh escaped me. "Love? You call this love?" I scoffed. "He used both of us, Janet. And you're still standing here defending him?" "But he's changed," she insisted, her voice cracking with emotion. "He'll change for me. You just couldn't see the good in him." I shook my head, an exhausted smile curling my lips. "Good? There is no good in him, Janet. He's a con artist, and you're just another one of his victims." Her face crumpled, but I didn't stay to see if my words had truly sunk in. I had wasted enough time on them. As I walked away, a strange sense of closure settled over me. The lies, the betrayal, the court battles, it had all taken a toll on me. But through it all, I had come out stronger. The man who had once promised me forever had revealed his true self, and I had survived. More than that, I had won. Exposing Sean for the world to see was supposed to bring closure, to end things with a dramatic final act. But in reality, the last chapter of our story didn't end with a bang. It ended in quiet silence. Like a ghost, Sean slipped out of town, leaving behind nothing but broken promises and a trail of unpaid debts. He had managed to settle his financial obligations to me and his legal wife, maybe thinking that would somehow cleanse him of his sins before he disappeared. But the real disaster he left behind? That was with Janet. My sister. Alone, pregnant, and abandoned. A few weeks after Sean vanished, Janet showed up at my apartment. It was the first time I had seen her since that explosive day in court. She stood there in my doorway, looking nothing like the bold, confident girl she used to be. Her shoulders hunched, her eyes downcast. She seemed smaller, almost like a shadow of herself. "Scarlett, I need help," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, thick with desperation. "He left me, and I'm going to have his baby. I have nothing." The old me, the sister who had practically raised her, who had sacrificed so much for her, might have opened the door without a second thought. But that girl was gone. Too much had happened. Too much damage had been done. I leaned against the doorframe, my expression unreadable. "You have the apartment, and you'll have the baby. That's a start. You're not on the streets, Janet. You're not helpless." Tears welled up in her eyes. "But I don't have any money, Scarlett. The bills, the baby. I need help, please." A deep ache settled in my chest, but I didn't let it show. I shook my head, my decision firm, even though it hurt to say the words. "You made your choice, Janet. Now you can make another. Figure it out. Just like I had to when Mom and Dad died. Just like I did when you betrayed me." Her body trembled as she broke down, covering her face with her hands. Sobs racked through her, shaking her fragile frame. "I never meant to hurt you," she choked out between gasps. "I thought I was in love. I really did." A bitter smile tugged at my lips. Love doesn't make you betray your family. Love doesn't make you stand by while I was humiliated. I exhaled slowly, my voice steady but unyielding. "You didn't love me enough to stay away from him, or to tell me the truth before everything fell apart." Janet looked up at me, her eyes pleading, desperate. "So that's it? You're just gonna turn me away?" I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay strong. "Yes, that's it." My tone was final, unwavering. "You're going to walk away from here and take care of your child, just like I took care of you." Her lips trembled, but I didn't wait for another plea. I turned, stepped back inside, and closed the door behind me. Her cries echoed in the hallway, but I didn't open the door again. The silence that followed was deafening. It was, without a doubt, the hardest thing I had ever done. But it was necessary. After that day, life slowly returned to a peaceful normalcy I hadn't even realized I missed. I threw myself back into work, immersing myself in the career I had put on the back burner for too long. I rediscovered old hobbies, the little joys I had neglected in the chaos. Most importantly, I rebuilt something I had lost along the way: my independence. The part of me that had always been strong, that had always stood on her own, piece by piece, I reclaimed her. As for Janet, I heard things here and there through family friends. She had given birth to a little girl, a baby she was raising on her own. They said she was getting by, that she was managing. I sincerely hoped that was true. I hoped she had found her way, that she had discovered a strength she never knew she had, the kind of strength I had always found in being a sister, the kind of strength she now had to find in being a mother. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: trust wisely. Not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions, and sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you the most. Listen to your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Real love doesn't come at the cost of your dignity, self-worth, or well-being. Never invest more in someone than they are willing to invest in you. Love should never be one-sided. And finally, forgive yourself for trusting the wrong people. What matters isn't the betrayal, it's how you rise from it. Choose strength. Choose yourself.